Hey everyone, welcome to a new video, welcome to my channel. My name is Maaike. Today I would like to talk to you about my 2020 reading year in review. And I think in my previous video, which I filmed just before this, I said I was going to show you some stats. However, I'm not sure how helpful that is. Like, I don't really care whether I've read enough female or male authors. Like, my reading choices tend to be quite 50-50 and they have been for years. So I don't really approach my reading from that perspective. So I was talking to you about stats, but I'm not really go into too much depth because I don't think I really have to. So what I'm really going to focus on is just chat to you about how I experienced 2020 as a reading year, and to sort of talk to you what I hope to achieve this year in 2021, and then I can hopefully do another video sometime soon where I talk to you about the top 10 books I want to get to in 2021, and update you on the list I had in 2020 and what I ended up reading and what I didn't end up reading, etc. etc. So what I'm going to be talking to you about first is my 2020 reading year, and 2020 was a struggle. I mean, if you didn't struggle with something in 2020, like where were you at some point? But my reading goal every year is to get to 50 books, which I never make, by the way. I never get to 50 books. I only did it once, and only because I read lots of short things. That was in 2016 or 2017. Like, I ended up like adding in some graphic novels just to get to the 50. And I kind of stopped doing that over the years. And so I just try to get to somewhere in the ballpark of 50 books a year, and then I'm pretty happy. And in case you've been following this channel, then you know that I hit a major reading slump over the summer, and it took quite some time for me to get out of it. October and November I did quite well again, and then December, if you saw last week's video, then you know I didn't do that well again. I've hit another bit of a slump for obvious reasons. Like, sometimes just life gets in the way, and that's definitely what happened for me. Despite that, despite the reading slump, despite everything that was going on in my life, I did manage to read 42 books, which I think is not that bad. I mean, considering that I literally didn't read a book for like 3 months out of this year, I read 42 books in 9 months. I'm quite happy with that. So for me, I'm like, okay. I read a total of 15,182 pages, which is a bit less than last year. Then I read 18,355 pages, and I read 46 books. So just for reference, you could say, so this year I read just over 15,000 pages. In the year 2016, in which I read 52 books, I read just under 17,000 pages. So I read 16,875 pages. In 2016, over 52 books. So I think that I really didn't do that bad of a job. I do have to say, though, that in previous years, so in 2017, 2018, and 2019, I read over 18,000 pages. So I definitely did better then, even though sometimes I only got into like the 45, 46 range. Right now it's been 42, 15,000 books, and that's due to the fact that I read quite a few shorter books again, especially at the start of the year. So I had the aim, you can't really see it, but on this shelf over here, I keep some children's books. And one of the things I wanted to do in 2020 was to reread some of my childhood favorites. And those books are only like 100 pages each. So for me, I definitely did get quite a number of books in because I read quite a lot of short books. So that tells me something as well. However, towards the end of the year, when I sort of started to let go, I think that that's also, you know, when I go over my like top 10 list, I'm pretty sure that I was really good at sticking to that list and sort of bearing in mind what I wanted to read in the first half of the year. And also with this goal of reading children's books, like, it was really easy for me to stick to that until the summertime, but then just something happened, perhaps that reading slump, that just kind of made me veer off course. And then I started to read other things, and some of the books there were definitely bigger. So I did read a couple of like 700, 900 plus books towards the end of the year, and definitely got the page count up, even though of course then you don't finish books as quickly. I do have to say that one other thing that has really helped me to get more books into my system is by reading audiobooks as well. And I know that everybody counts this as reading, but for me, again, one of the reasons why the number of books I've read is a little bit lower here is because I tend to listen to audiobooks when I get ready in the morning before I go to work. But of course, pandemic, lockdown, I'm a teacher, I work in education, I've been teaching from home since March. So my entire routine is kind of like gone because I no longer have to go catch a train in the morning. So not only does that mean like an extra hour of sleep in the mornings, yay, it also means that I can take a more leisurely pace in my getting ready process. So, you know, I'm someone who enters emails in their PJs like first thing in the morning. And then I'll like decide to get ready because I'm like, oh, I've got a class to teach at 11, you know? So it's just that entire routine, like I try to stick to it for sure, just to not, but yeah. If I were to go to work every single day like I did in 2019, I would have been able to read a lot more audiobooks as well, because I tend to like clock in an hour of reading a day if I listen to an audiobook while I'm like having breakfast, getting, you know, brushing my teeth, getting my makeup done. If I stick to that, I can get so much more in, but I'm not someone who will just like listen to an audiobook when I'm sitting on the couch. Then I would just want to read a book or watch a movie or do whatever. And that's another thing I feel that because of this whole like lockdown situation, you could say, I have definitely also been focused on different types of media and not just reading. So over the summertime, which is usually again a period of time when I clock in a lot of reading, I can read like a book a day, and I just didn't because I ended up going through Netflix and watch like 50 movies in like 3 weeks. Like I went on a movie binge watching spree over the summertime, and it was very enjoyable. And yeah, I can only do so much. Like I cannot watch something and read at the same time. Doesn't work for me. I am too single-mindedly divided in my attention, you could say. So that's why, yes, I definitely didn't do as well as I'd wanted to. However, getting 42 books in, despite a massive reading slump, I think is still fairly well done. However, I also feel that I could have done better if perhaps I would have been not less strict, but just not putting too many restrictions on what I want to read. And so I definitely let go of that idea of, oh, I have to read a children's book every time. I just really find that if I read certain things that are too similar, and especially if it's a bit simplistic, like a children's book, or too much YA in one go, or too many Dresden Files in one go, my brain can't handle that. I need the variation of something more complex, and then something more detective, and then I want something historical, and then I want fantasy. Like, I really need to vary my reading in order for me to stay interested in what I'm reading. I cannot only read fantasy because everything just starts to blend together into one big blur of fantasy, and I just don't enjoy it as much anymore. So for me, and that's something, this is the bridge to like my 2021 plans, you could say. So for me, what's been very important to realize is that I need to not stick too much to things I tell myself at the beginning of the year. So even though I have some plans, I'm just going to be okay with it if I'm just going to completely let go of them. One of the plans I have still is to reorganize these bookshelves, but I'll probably do it a little bit later on in the month. Again, something I wanted to do over Christmas break, and I just didn't feel like it. So I decided not to do it just yet. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to no longer organize my shelves by, like, some of them are categorized by like a genre, but then other ones are organized by color. And I want to go by genre for sure. So I've got my classics in these top 3 shelves, but I also want to make like a shelf with historical fiction, YA fantasy, adult fantasy. Maybe I can make a sci-fi shelf. I'm not sure I have enough books for that. One with literary fiction, because I tend to pick books based on their genre more so than anything else. And because I've had my books in this sort of setup for years, I find I really go for like the same things all the time, if that makes sense. But if I just know that's my historical fiction shelf, I'm craving historical fiction, I can just read that. So that's why I think I want to reorganize my shelves. That's definitely on my to-do list. Another thing I want to do is read more Dutch books. So I focused on children's books last year, but this year I'm just going to expand that and make it about Dutch books, because in 2020, what I've acquired quite a lot of is a full shelf of Dutch literature. And it's just time for me to get a move on that. So I was going to tell myself to read a Dutch book per month, but with my reading experience of 2020, I think what I'm just going to say is that I'm going to try and read as many Dutch books as I feel like, whether that's a children's book from years ago or whether it's like full-blown like Dutch literature. I'm going to leave that in the middle as well, but I'm going to try to read a Dutch book every so often. Once a month, I hope, but that doesn't mean that I need to get my reading train rolling again. So that's definitely something I want to do as well. So yeah, that's definitely there. So reorganize my bookshelves, try to read more Dutch books. That's definitely on the list as well. And just, again, also not be scared of big books. I definitely last year read a lot of short books because I was like, oh, 500 plus pages, I just can't. However, some of those really long books ended up being some of my favorites. So the time investment that it takes, and I also noticed that as I did a video towards the end of the year with my all-time favorite standalones, and most of those are 450 plus pages. Like, I like long books, so I should just sit down and commit and read something like this, which I was hoping to read over the summer in 2020, and I just didn't get around to it because then I got my slump. But perhaps it's better to take more time, perhaps read fewer books, even though I still set that goal to 50 because that's just a nice number in my head. But I am under no pressure to get that 50 like reading, like I don't care. But it's a nice number in my head. And I remember one of the reasons why I set my Goodreads reading goal originally at 50 is because I kind of just organically read between 25 and 30 books without trying. That's not a challenge for me. So for me, reading between 25 and 30 books is like, that was my average before 2016 when I started the Goodreads reading challenge every year. So I think I really started reading again for enjoyment in like 2009, 2010. And I started noticing, like, just with what I'm reading, like 25 to 30 books, easy. So that's why setting it to 50 makes it a bit more, like, I wanted to read more, which is why I set that goal to 50 originally. But I feel that if I can stay in that 50,000 to 20,000 page benchmark, that I'm happy, and then I don't really care about how many books that is. You know, I've seen people giving their numbers and saying, oh, I've read 120 books, but then in total they've read 10,000 pages. I'm like, what were you reading? You know, graphic novels. So very often the case is then that people have read poetry, like bundles, or might have been reading graphic novels indeed. So for me, I mean, in Goodreads, everything you list as a book, it will count as something that you've read. But for me, something like this, I know will just last with me forever, whereas graphic novels are like these very short, like children's books that are in there. They don't really stick with me, you could say. So that's why I want to focus on getting more out of my reading, and I'm still going to have some numbers to report on, and I'm still going to set that Goodreads reading goal for sure. But I'm here because I want to read for my personal enjoyment. And I find that the more pressure I put on myself, the more challenges I try to do, it doesn't get me to read more books. It actually, it actually reverses that for me. So I'm just going to stick to 50 books a year, and that's it. And we'll see if we'll make it by the end of it. I don't care. But yeah, I definitely want to get to some bigger books that I hope to just fall in love with. There's a couple of fantasy books that are definitely on the list that I would like to read, that again are very beloved within the booktube community. And that just makes me so nervous, because very often what I have found is that if something is popular on booktube, I'm not always going to like it. So for me, it's just a bit nerve-wracking. So case in point, I showed it to you in my previous video, the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. Everybody's raving about how good that is. And it just makes me so nervous, because it means that I want to love it too. So I have the complete trilogy, and it's been sitting on my shelf for more than a year and a half. And the reason why I don't pick it up is because I'm scared that I won't like it as much as everybody else. So yeah, definitely on the list for this month to get that trilogy started. Maybe this one soon too. I don't know yet. I don't know. I still have to think about the 10 books I'd like to get to in 2020. I definitely do. But need to give that a bit more thought. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's just, like I can decide like, oh, I want to get to these books and I want to do this and I want to do that. But I think that of the 10 books I set myself to read in 2020, I think I've read half. And I remember over the summer, I actually read another book in place, like I was actually supposed to read, according to my list, a different classic than the one I ended up reading. So I already know, like I cannot stick to these kind of rules very well. So maybe I just need to do like a mid-year check-in and just kind of change the list mid-year through and make some videos about that, just to, you know, keep it clear, keep it honest, because I think that's just what I'm gonna have to do. I'm just really not good at, like, that's why I also don't do TBR videos. Like, I cannot decide a month in advance all the books I would like to get to. I just can't. Like, how do people do this? Are you with me on this? Am I just a strange person? Like, because everybody's doing these videos like, oh, I'm going to read these books this month, and then you see their wrap up and then they've read all those books, and I'm like, I cannot, like, I don't know what shoes I want to wear tomorrow. I don't know what makeup I want to wear tomorrow. I can't decide what book I want to read in 4 months. Like, I can't. Let alone like 3 weeks from now. Like, where's the fun in that? You know, one of the biggest perks of having this massive 600 book library behind me. By the way, bookshelf tour is up. So if you want to see everything that's on these shelves currently, check that out. But yeah, the joy of having so many books is that I can go through them and then browse it like you would a library or a bookstore, and then I can pick what I would like to read next. Problem solved. But if I have to decide months in advance or weeks in advance, like, oh, this is what I'm going to read, it just takes the enjoyment out of it for me. And then, you know, you kind of lose track of things you might want to reread, and I don't know. For me, having as little as a plan as possible is the best way to go about it, to keep the enjoyment train rolling, for sure. So that's just what I'm going to go with. I'm going to have as few plans as possible, and the plans I now make for myself, I'm just going to let go of them. I'm just going to let it go, and I'm not going to worry about a single thing. And so yeah, we're getting a little bit rambly here, so I think it's time for me to close off this video. I think 2020, despite everything that was going on and the fact that I hit a major reading slump, I think I did do well enough considering everything that was going on. I just think I think I did. I know a lot of people have used this pandemic to just read so much more than they usually do, but I was like teaching the entire time. I've been teaching online classes, and I can tell you, if there's something that takes just everything out of your core being, it's teaching an online class. So that's why, that's also perhaps one of the reasons why I've had just less energy to read. I don't know exactly what's been going on. However, I hope that 2021 can hopefully bring me lots more books that I enjoy, because that's ultimately why I read. I love stories, and I just hope I can find some great stories again to read and report back to you on them in my videos. So with that being said, I would like to thank you very much for watching this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more by me. I typically make one video a week over on this channel. I'm not always that good at it. I have to say, that's another thing. I'm just going to relax on it. You get a video at some point in time. There's no specific day. I try to get it up over the weekend, and I'm going to try and pre-film more for this video, for this channel, because I just can't. Else I won't be able to keep up. Once I have the content, it's easy enough for me to sit down and edit it and get it up, but I've been just struggling fitting in the filming of videos. So that's definitely something I need to work around a little bit better. So bear with me as I try and do that. Having a reading slump definitely doesn't help if you're also trying to make videos about it. So that's why I definitely hope I can keep the reading train going. But if there doesn't happen to be a video one week, hey, who cares? I'm doing this for fun. I just want to share my enjoyment of reading with the world via this channel. That's the purpose. That's why I am here. So I hope you'd like to stick around for that and subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you in my next video, hopefully next week. Bye-bye!